Welcome to the Nativity Podcast, where we give listeners a behind-the-scenes look into the life of our active Catholic parish here in Burke, Virginia. How can we help you grow in your own faith? Listen to find out.
Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Nativity Podcast. I am your host, parochial vicar of Nativity Parish in Burke, Virginia, Father Ed Bresnahan, and with me, as always,
Your Director of Social Media, Mary Castellano.
My gosh, we are coming to you as we are cruising through Season 3. What an absolute joy and a blessing to be with you. A special thanks to all the people who have sidelined us or talked to us on the side and said thanks for what you're doing. We really appreciate being able to showcase all of the different things that are going on in our amazing parish. And we have a real treat for you guys today. We have a real treat. We are joined today by none other than Mr. Tim Yeager and Mr. Bob Sands, who are with a group called That Man Is You. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Greetings.
I was trying to figure out a good icebreaker for today's podcast, and I thought to myself, I was like, this is about a men's group and a guy's group. Most guys, there's a sports movie that inspires you. There's like a, that kind of triumphant moment in the sun where, you're almost just tearing up because, everybody was chanting in the stadium for that one guy. And I think one of the quintessential movies for that is a great movie called Rudy. And I guess for those of you who don't know, I don't want to spoil it too much, but in the movie, Rudy is a really big fan of Notre Dame and has that lifelong dream of just getting to play football for Notre Dame and going out with a golden helmet and hearing the thrill of the crowd. And there's just a triumphant scene at the end where he gets to get in on one play, and it's just that one triumphant moment. It doesn't have to be a major star. It doesn't have to have incredible talent. He just got to show up and have that one experience. Mm-hmm. And so I got to ask you guys, I got to ask all of you, what is that one moment that you wish you could just get to do, right? It could be anything sports related, but you get that one shining moment that you get to be there for. What would you guys say?
Well, Father, for me, it's pretty easy. It's the one shining moment. It's probably the fourth quarter NCAA championship. Finally, Villanova is in it. I'm a guard playing for Rolly Massimino. And in comes the ball. There's 2 seconds left. Somebody dishes it out. I throw it up and bing, right in.
Game-winning shot to win the NCAA tournament for Villanova.
Nice.
And I can hear Ryan Fannin, the voice of the Villanova Wildcats, just saying, this is the Wildcats, right? Yeah.
It is the Wildcats.
Just saying, cats win, cats win, cats win.
Exactly. And just a few years ago, that actually happened. It was a guy named Chris Jenkins. Same thing.
That's a great moment. Tim, what would you be your moment? What would be that thing?
So I'm a big baseball fan. So for me, it would be stepping on the field. I've always been a Baltimore Orioles fan, so it'd be stepping on the field at Camden Yards. I guess the bottom of the ninth, runners at second and third, down by 1 run, a chance to win the World Series, and I deliver a base hit to, I guess, left center field that clears the bases and wins the World Series.
Brings them all home.
Exactly.
Oh, that's incredible. I love that.
I love it. The Orioles. My people from Maryland.
Mary, what would be yours?
Oh, man. See, I don't know what they're called, but I think it'd be really fun to be one of the giant president heads that runs around on the grass field. I would just want to be one of them and just run around in those outfits. I think that would be a lot of fun.
I love that. Mm-hmm. It's funny because not every baseball stadium, but a lot of baseball stadiums have different versions of that. Mm-hmm. So they have like a pierogi race in Pittsburgh, and they have like a sausage race in Chicago or Milwaukee or something like that.
See, but the Nats have it the coolest because they have the presidents.
Exactly.
So they're recognizable.
Yeah, exactly.
You just don't want to do it on a sweltering hot 100-degree day, right?
That's true. That's very true.
Honestly, my shining moment, so I would love to, growing up, I was a gymnast. And so we always had this thing that every 4 years, there was this thing where the Olympics came on and we were always so excited about it. And I remember obviously being very excited about playing or being able to compete for USA, and being able to compete for the country. But when you start to watch the Olympics, there was one sort of moment that really kind of stuck out more than all the others. Not just being on the podium as a gold medal winner and kind of getting your picture taken with your teeth, like nibbling on the medal. But I thought that was a good one. but I always appreciated that like one person got to carry the flag in the opening ceremonies, and then one person who made a name for themselves during the ceremony, during the games, got to carry the flag on the way out, right, for the closing ceremonies. And so I think that would be like a cool shining moment. I don't have to like do anything like, I mean, maybe something spectacular cool happened, but if the country looked at me and said, you know what, we want you to represent us because of what happened during the Olympics, you know, we would like you to carry the flag for the closing ceremony. Cool. So I think that would be like my shining moment. So
that would be awesome.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so
like
pretty good ones, guys. Well, you know, we're gonna take a quick shift from the world of sports and all of the incredible intrigue that it brings, and we're going to talk about a group in our parish that really profoundly affects the men in our parish and helps them in a particular way to grow in their faith. And the name of that group is called That Man Is You. So, Tim, I gotta ask, what is That Man Is You? And then how did you bring it here?
So why don't we start with how it got started here. So last fall you had the Walking with Purpose ladies on. And so the kind of little secret is it's really not a man who got That Man As You started. It's a few ladies who got That Man As You started. So as we kind of watched them start their first year, there was a combination, I think, of things. One was there were some of us as husbands who were watching the women meet, watch the discussions they were having. Not that we were eavesdropping, but you know, you'd walk by and hey, that's pretty cool. I wonder if we could do that for the men. And then there's an equal mix, I think, of some of the women who were in Walking with Purpose thinking we ought to find something for our husbands to kind of get into their faith a little bit as well. And those kind of two things, I think, collided a little bit. And then so the team that kind of started Walking with Purpose, Jennifer No, Monica Sullivan, and my wife, Patty Yeager, did a little bit of research. And the next thing I know, there's this evening planned, getting to know That Man Is You, an interest meeting. And as we come to Mass a few weeks before that interest meeting is set up, my wife is going around and talking to different men about whether they'd be interested in kind of leading this program, running this program. Because we've had this conversation that says, okay, so what happens when we have the interest meeting? What happens after that? Who's going to keep this moving? And so after I watched her kind of talk to a few men about this, I start getting this kind of embarrassed kind of feeling like, okay, well, what about your stiff husband? Why can't he be the guy? And there's a little bit of God talking to me going on here too, of course.
Little humility.
So finally I said, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll do the interest meeting. We'll see what kind of an interest level there is. And then I'll facilitate the meeting. We'll set up a sign-up sheet. And we'll see who's interested in actually participating. And even more importantly, how many men are willing to help kind of get it started. Because the recommendation from the Manage You program is that you have a core team that kind of gets things going and starts the ball rolling, if you will. So the interest meeting was really great. We had Bruce Jacobine from St. Timothy's. They're the charter program here in the diocese. And then Deacon Nick Leduca, who was at St. Mary of Sorrow, at Holy Spirit at the time, who had that Manage You program. They both came. They described the program. Deacon Kelly was here as well. We put out the sign-up sheet. We had 25 men sign up that they were interested in the program, and more importantly, we had 10 men who signed up to be part of the core team.
Okay.
And so that clearly God was sending the message, hey, there's an interest here, so let's get after it. Let's get started.
That's amazing. And the rest is history?
History's still in the making, I think.
History's still in the
journey
making.
continues.
That's incredible. So, but now, like, this is important because you've got folks coming from other parishes to help tell you what the program is like. This is not specifically a nativity program. This is a program that any parish, especially for maybe like our listeners who aren't necessarily nativity parishioners, this is something that they could actually bring to their parish.
That's correct. Yes. So in fact, there's a national program headquartered out of Houston, Texas, run by an organization called Paradisus Day that was formed, I think, back in the 2001 time frame. The gentleman who started is a gentleman by the name of Steve Bowman. He's an energy derivatives trader who walked away from his, what I assume was a very high-paying and demanding job, and decided that God was calling him to start some kind of a lay ministry. And the ministry was focused on family, marriage, that type of thing. And so he starts Paradisus Day in 2001. And in 2004, he has a fellow parish mate come to him and say, hey, I was wondering if you could kind of put together some kind of a men's program for the parish here. They were at St. Cecilia's in Houston, Texas. And Steve's response was, yeah, I'm kind of busy doing other stuff for marriage encounter and that kind of thing right now, so I don't have the time for that. Finally, his friend wore him down, and he put together this program that really launched that Man Is You. I think what was interesting in some of the notes that the coordinator that we deal with in Houston sent me, originally the parish agreed to allow him to have this program and start it, but they said, we don't think anybody will show up because men aren't interested in this kind of thing. And then turns out the first session they had 125 men show up. And by the end of the year, they had somewhere in the neighborhood of 225 men who were coming on a Saturday, every Saturday, to participate in the program. And so kind of like, to some extent, the way in which I kind of saw God answering the thoughts and prayers here at Nativity, same thing happened there. Clearly there was a need there for it. Clearly there was an interest level there, and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah, why do you think that is? Why do you think we have the perception that men don't want to show up to a weekly program? And at the same time, why is it that so many people did show up? Maybe why is the perception one thing and then reality is something quite different?
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer to that. And Bob, jump in here. I think the first thing that we talk about a lot of times is I don't know that men are necessarily comfortable sitting around talking about their faith. It's kind of like men sitting around talking about their feelings. It's just not comfortable. But once you start kind of doing it and you realize that the guy sitting next to you is going through the same spiritual journey that you're going through, wrestling with the same challenges and issues that you're wrestling with, and, oh, by the way, maybe you can learn something from his journey that you can apply to your life, then you start opening up more, and it just kind of comes natural, I think.
Yeah, I would I definitely ditto that. But I also think it's the format itself. I think it's, number one, there's no homework. There's nothing to prepare for. So you just show up. In our case, it's very early in the morning. Tim will take you through that. So that's been kind of an interesting challenge a little bit in that we get started bright and early on Saturday. So that was kind of an initial hurdle, but we've kind of figured that out. But no homework. You show up, have a cup of coffee. We've gone to Dunkin' Donuts now, but just a simple cup of coffee. You watch a video, very inspirational video, and then you break out in these groups. And what's interesting is I think it goes beyond, I don't know about, at least for me, and I wasn't one of the original founders. I was a early group member that Tim brought me in. I was fortunate enough to have Tim as a leader in our very early years. And what happens is you transition to applying your faith journey into your life journey. And there were men, including myself, that, literally are in tears as these groups happen. And maybe that's scaring the audience off a little bit, but it's really hard for men to do that, and it's just a safe place. What goes on there stays there, and you feel very comfortable. So I think it's the format, the way they structured it. That's my opinion.
Nice. And maybe you all can kind of speak a little bit to the format. So how do you all do it here at Nativity? What is the structure? What is, what could people expect if they were to show up on a Saturday morning?
Sure. So we have the room. So first of all, we meet in the Father Reedy room. Mm-hmm. We have the room set up, chairs set up, everything ready to go. About 6:45 or so on Saturday morning. Men start A.M.
A.M.
A.M. That's right. And as Bob said, I'll stop by Dunkin' Donuts. I'll get a box of Joe. So we've got some coffee to get the juices flowing, if you will. And then probably about 6:55, I'll open. We'll do a short prayer. I'll make announcements, and then, as Bob mentioned, Paradisus Day puts together about a half-hour video that we'll watch that's based on the subject. And each year there's sort of a theme that you follow through. And then to add to what Bob was saying, so to make it even easier, then when you break into your small discussion groups, they give you 3 or 4 questions that you can use as a starter discussion. And that usually, so that really makes it really simple for us. So after the video's over, we split up. We have 3 small groups right now, about 8 to 9, maybe 10 men in each small group.
Wow.
And we split up across the classrooms, and each one has a group leader that kind of leads the questions.
It's pretty straightforward. So it sounds like, and especially like, I know for me, I love routine and I love being able to have a sense of a context when I go in. You know, when people tell me, oh, just go and do your thing. I never ever know what that is. But if I have a sense of what it is I'm supposed to do, or what it is I'm supposed to be thinking about or considering, it really does come through. Like you said, it's a much safer environment, a much safer place. So I have a feeling that it's got to be very comforting for most guys to go in knowing, okay, I can reasonably expect not the same thing every week, but a similar structure every week, and there's something sort of reassuring about that structure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think now that we've done it for a number of seasons, you've got a core group of guys who are used to interacting within the small groups. There's a level of trust there. There's a level of intimacy and friendship, and so we're kind of at a point now where a lot of the guys will say they can't live without this on Saturday mornings. It's really worth rolling out of bed that early in the morning to come do.
I was going to say an example of that is our season this year just ended, but we already have groups being formed for the summer that are going to continue on our own, and we'll just pick not a Paradise Day program, but a different program that's out there. But we just feel comfortable and have a need to, kind of want to get together and do our thing.
6:45 in the morning is tough, but the experience is rewarding. The experience is a very rewarding thing. What would you say, especially this year? You said that the course has just kind of ended for this year. What would you say maybe one of the big takeaways? What was one of the big moments in your faith that was really supported by maybe one of the topics or something that happened over the course of this year?
So I think the theme for this year was called The Fight for Faith. And so there are 26 sessions in a year program. The first half, which we ran from September through Christmas, was focused around the Old Testament and how the fight for faith in those days were the battles that the Israelites fought to get to the Promised Land. And so you'd go through the things that would have to happen for the Israelites to win that specific battle, and then as we step past Christmas, then into the springtime, the focus goes to the New Testament, and then how Christ now kind of renews those battles more from a spiritual perspective, and how he becomes kind of the entry to the Promised Land of heaven. And then you tie that together, and then towards the back end, there's an awful lot about, okay, so here's how we as men, the tools that are available to us to have that spiritual fight on a daily basis, because we are in a spiritual battle every day of our lives. So how do you depend on things like the rosary, scripture, that type of thing, and how you can use that to help draw closer to God and to fight those battles, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
The irony of Tim's wife and women kind of forming this is fascinating, because I think as men, at least for me, we have a difficult time being the spiritual leader of the family. And one of the things that I've learned through this, even though I'm an old guy, and there's a lot of young dads and young folks that are in there, and it's nice to be kind of the elder. But one of the things that I looked at is, why is that so difficult? Why has that been so difficult for me to be the spiritual, other than, no, I'm not going to say it. But why has it been so difficult for me to stand up and be the spiritual leader? And I just feel like if I had to do it all over again, and my kids were, 3 or 5 years old or whatever, I don't think I would have a problem now after 3 or 4 years of. Actually, we're in our 5th season now, right? 5 years of This Man Is You. It's a lot of strength. I could stand up and be a man in my faith and be a spiritual leader of the family. And I see that transformation in a lot of young dads that have come through this program. It's very powerful.
Feels like that's a big thing. A theme that I've noticed, especially with our young people, right? When you're working with high school and college age kids, you find a lot of folks who they've gone to Catholic school their whole life or CCD. They've learned a lot of things, but feeling confident in your faith, feeling like you could stand up and give a witness or give an expression of truth or something like that. It's sometimes very hard for them to say. We oftentimes Catholics don't quote the scriptures the same way that some of our other Christian brethren might. Sometimes we don't have a hard grasp on all several thousand paragraphs of the catechism, right? And it can be a little bit daunting. And I think sometimes that trickles down into the rest of our life. And I think being able to have a program that actually assists and sort of elevates you to be able to say, actually, you've got a lot of the tools, a lot of the things at your disposal that you're already capable of doing. And sometimes it's just about having another guy nearby or another person nearby, sort of challenging and encouraging you to that effect. Would you say that one of the best benefits of That Man Is You, more than even the program, is the ability for the gentlemen to be able to get together and actually build off of one another and strengthen one another in faith?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I was going to say,
Yes.
I don't think that challenge of being able to express your faith is unique to teenagers and to college students. We all talk about that every Saturday morning about how it's a challenge for us as well. Mm-hmm. And how do you do that? First of all, you got to understand your faith, and so that's the key with, I think, a lot of what we get with the content from That Man Is You. And then the second thing is how do you do that in a way that you can maybe get your message across subtly in a way that doesn't get you canceled, so to speak.
Sure.
And that you really can capture your audience and you kind of draw them in.
Yeah, we talk a lot about sharing our witness in our faith and our the Holy Spirit bringing us. We talk a lot about that, and not for necessarily for folks that initially come in. They're a little more reserved about it, but those that have been in for a while, and we certainly, I wasn't there when I first joined. I wasn't able to talk about that. But there's little things like that I do. I'll give you a great example. At the end of my signature, I have a prayer. Some of you have seen it whenever emails go out, but I don't. I keep that in my business correspondence. My professional life and my personal life. It's the same thing, and it's amazing how many people you touch. You find people in faith. They may or may not be Catholics. And I have never had anybody get really ticked off, and I always thought, hey, it's not politically correct, and I'm going to insult somebody because, I'm sharing what my beliefs are. And it's very much the opposite thing. And I have a whole bunch of other examples on how I have the strength to evangelize my faith and why. And that's what Timmy has done for me, is given me kind of the confidence to be able to do that.
And just to clarify, Bob is not referring to a nickname of our friend Tim here. That's the nickname that we've given That Man Is You as a parish, Timmy.
Good point.
Good point. Yeah, that is our nickname. We should clarify.
That's a really important clarification. Timmy is That Man Is You.
Yeah,
it's the same.
But that's a beautiful.
Were you ever called Timmy? Tim, in your youth, were you a Timmy, or just a Tim?
Occasionally, but I try to dissuade that. I don't like being called that.
Same as Bobby for me. So,
there you go.
Yeah. Oh no,
you're
wild? Not a Bobby.
And just to complete the rhyme, I hated Eddie.
Oh no,
because I'm Father Ed, and now I go by Father B because I've noticed that people take Father Ed and turn that into Fred. So.
That's excellent.
So there's just poor nicknames all around, but my goodness. So well, and what you just hit on though is a powerful thing. And something that I find across denominations and across religions and everything, the human condition, we are so regularly compartmentalizing our life, right? Our circles of friends are divided up. These are the buddies that this is my gardening buddy, this is my shooting buddy, this is my I don't know, it's the people I hang out with on Saturday night, right? And we sort of divide our lives up into those different ways. We have these circles of friends that are kind of around with our kids or our faith or whatever, and then faith sort of takes one section of the whole of your life. And really what Bob, you were just talking about is the idea of this wondrous miracle of allowing your faith to spill over into the rest of your life. And maybe this is the good question, is how has that man as you helped you to be able to do that? And I think the phrase is discipleship, right? How does it disciple you to then go and become that evangelist that you were just talking about? Is there anything in that man as you in the program, or is there something that you guys have been able to work through as a group, or what is that really allows you to kind of become to allow your faith to be shared in more than just Sundays?
You want to go? I think it's your turn because
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing we struggle with pretty much every Saturday morning when we meet and we talk. But I think what's different now than before that man is you is that I now have that collection of men who are friends inside the parish and outside the church, but who share the same kind of journey I'm on, who share the same kind of views, and that I'm comfortable kind of getting together with outside of the church setting, if you will. And so it's almost like you kind of build this separate set of friends and this band of brothers, if you will, that you kind of rely on. And it's been fun to watch because even beyond that man is you, so two of the small groups have actually spawned off and also are doing the Exodus 90 journey. And so even that takes it to another level of kind of going through all the different disciplines and coming together every Saturday morning to kind of talk through how you did that week, holding each other accountable, that type of thing. And I think that's the beauty of those friendships.
I'll give you another example, and I'm going to try not to get emotional here, but recently I lost a very dear friend of mine, Steve Bruce. Well, how I met Steve was he was in Group 1 with us. That's how I met Steve initially. And for me, he epitomized he brought me into Cursillo. So I went deeper in my faith. I went the next step. Timmy was the launching pad, and for me, I went into Cursillo, which gave me a framework of, I don't know, that's probably a podcast for another day, Cursillo. I'd love to see Cursillo a little more active here, but it's a template of living your life with and your faith with weekly piety, weekly study and action. And Steve adopted me into that program. He was a Cursillista. And the mantra is make a friend, be a friend, bring a friend to Christ. That's the mantra of Cursillo. And Steve lived that in everything he did. And for me, he touched me in a very special way that was even outside of the group. And he brought me into a much deeper place with my faith. That's just an example for me personally. There are a ton of other stories like that. Tim just shared one with what his group is doing.
Absolutely amazing. And an amazing way to explain something that like most guys might be afraid of, the idea of a deep and abiding friendship and a real sense of brotherhood with someone else, to be able to discuss the difficult questions and to be able to challenge one another to make choices that, like you said, help deepen you in your faith, your relationship with Christ. Maybe Curcio would be another one we could do on another podcast. But the idea for folks would be like that. I love what you said, a template of study, piety, and action, right? That there's a framework, and most frameworks are only as good as the structure and the foundation that you build underneath of it. And everybody building a house knows it's much easier when you have friends to do it. Yes. So having the right group of people around, that's a great way to be.
Just one other, just along those lines, just one other quick comment is that one of the things that we do is we share resources. Like we discover new speakers, evangelists, music,
books,
podcasts,
this podcast, constantly, and we share that. And as we study, I know there are various things that I've done just based on suggestions from you, Tim, and others. I would pick up a book or download it, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Before Timmy, none of that took place.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, the first year we ran this in our small group, it was amazing. I spent half the time just writing down names that guys were throwing out. You know, Father Smith, who's that? Write that down. Bishop Barron, who's that? Write that down.
Seriously.
And then go back that weekend. I go look and I think, holy cow! Look at all this content that's
Gray.
out there. You know?
Yeah. Tim Gray. I mean, just the list goes on. It's amazing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I want to go back to that foundation idea, and I want to go back to that idea of what it is that you're building and being able to have those resources. Those resources have got to help one other particular aspect of your life. And so I'm just going to throw this out there just because I think it's powerful. I think of all of the things that it can do for you as a man and a man of Christ, it also probably as a particular way assists you in being both a husband and a father. So how would you describe how that man is you, and having that circle of men, would you say that has improved or developed or encouraged you as a husband and a father?
So yes, all the above.
Yeah.
Simple question.
I'm still struggling with the aspects of being a father, especially with having teenagers.
How many kids do you have?
3 kids.
Gotcha.
That's okay. I still am with my 40-year-old and 38-year-old. So
there we go.
It never stops, Tim. Never stops.
But I think, so just one example of that in terms of the husband aspect. So one of the really cool things is after I'd come home from That Man Is You on Saturday mornings, Patty's sitting at the breakfast table. She's having her breakfast, and so how'd the meeting go? And then we'd start this conversation about whatever the topic was, and next thing you know, it's an hour later, and we've had this conversation about our faith and just the common thoughts that we have about that topic, which is really kind of cool. So that's really helped a lot. I'm still a knucklehead most of the week, even with all the help I get from my friends on Saturday morning. So trying to apply that to being the best husband and best father is still a daily challenge. But yeah, it does give you a lot of things to think about, a lot of tools to use throughout the week.
Yeah, for me, it's in addition to that, it's being able to relate more to my kids who have kids. And so I learn a lot about I won't say millennials. I won't say that word.
Why?
But 40 and under dads, okay. Which both of my kids are, my son is 40 and under, and my daughter is 36 and under, but just their parenting and my son-in-law, in the case of my daughter, and the challenges. We went deep dive into discussion on the challenges of social media and pornography that they're faced with. And there's a whole bunch of deep conversations in the struggles. And there are some conversations I can give advice, but I get so much advice on how I can have, some of those discussions with my kids. It's very, very... So there's something in it for, I guess the net is, for a young parent, a single man or woman, as well as an old guy with me that has a couple of grandkids. You're just constantly learning and absorbing.
I think the other thing for me is that I feel like I'm a little better prepared now when at the teenager level, when they're asking, okay, why does the church believe this? And so I can better explain that. And if I can't, then at least I can say, okay, if you aren't going to listen to me, here are some resources you can go look for yourself and look into it yourself.
That's really good. I'm really glad you guys bring up those points, especially the listening aspect, Bob. I think that's really beautiful. I think too, just whether you're a man or a woman, but the ability to listen and listen well and listen in humility and learn from other people, and that this group has helped you kind of maybe, I don't know, I'm just using this as a general example, but kind of put aside your own personal pride in order to listen and learn, and acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. And so therefore we are here to learn and continue growing, as you keep mentioning, Tim. It's a continual process every single week, and that's why you come back every single week. I think that's really beautiful, and I'm really glad you mentioned that.
I think there's also something fruitful about having to be able to be flexible in that way, that there's always something new to learn. There's always sort of not always new teaching. Like the church's teaching has been faithful for 2,000 years, but it's not just the same old in the sense of, well, we've just always taught that. There's always new ways of unfolding the beauty of faith, and hearing those different voices, oftentimes for me at least, and I'm sure it is for everybody else, it provides those little sparks where you say, I've never heard it that way before, or I've never thought about it that way. That kind of breaks a little bit of a mold. And I know that there's other groups in the church sometimes that can get a little bit stuck right in that. And they can kind of, it's like, well, this is what we always do. This is the thing we're always doing. And we just do this thing. And so sometimes being able to say, all right, well, let's actually bounce some ideas off each other to see what works. And one thing that was mentioned earlier, that thing that sometimes works, is Exodus 90. And I know that a couple people, we've mentioned it before on other podcasts, actually. I think we've mentioned it on other podcasts or in reflections, some of the Lenten reflections. Exodus 90 is a program that helps with self-discipline over the course of about 90 days. So it's a program that you sort of enter into, but one of the key features of it is accountability. And another key feature is self-discipline and mortification. So you're balancing those things against what your friends are also doing, and you're supporting one another in that. And there's a little bit of flexibility. Is this thing not working for your group? Let's shift an angle and go with something that does work. Is this part too easy for everybody? Well, let's ramp it up a little bit because we're moving on to level 2. Well, maybe level 2 is a bit too much. Let's all tone it down a little bit and be reasonable before we all fall into a despair. But it's a program that is allowed to be flexible because you're listening to one another. And I feel like that's got to be one of the strengths of That Man Is You, be able to be flexible and listen to where one another's coming from.
Yeah,
definitely.
Father, can I steal one of your questions that I highlighted?
You absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think this is a really great question that Father had actually suggested. I just want to make sure that we get it in here before we close out. What advice would you all give to young men who are seeking to or it doesn't have to be young men, but just men in general who are seeking to deepen their own faith? And are there any sort of pitfalls that you all have seen in your own experience working in men's ministry that kind of prevent men from kind of growing in their faith life? And I also want to just throw this in there too, that this is speaking to married men, husbands, fathers, but also single men as well.
Well, I'd say first of all, I'd say come join us on Saturday mornings, and if not us, then a little bit later on Saturday mornings you've got the men's prayer and reflection group with Rick Lafredo. And then if not that, the Knights of Columbus have every couple Tuesday nights, they do Into the Breach. And all that's really kind of the baseline there really is take the time to understand and get to know your faith. And if those things don't work for you, then as we talked earlier, there are lots of resources out there. Bible in a year, Catechism in a year. Understand your faith, dig into your faith, learn your faith, I think is a real key thing. And then I think after that, just get involved in your local parish. that's the beauty of this parish. You've got those of us who are kind of focused on the aspect of trying to learn our faith, understand our faith, and apply our faith. You've got the knights who balance some of that, but more of an outreach and community service, that type of thing. So I think that would kind of be my advice.
Yeah, I've been kind of praying and thinking about that question. Kind of a loaded question. Thank you,
Such
Father,
a great
very
question.
much. I think the challenge, at least where I was at one time in my spiritual life, where I was a cradle Catholic, and went to church every Sunday. I mean, you've heard the story a million times, right? It was taking the first plunge was the difficult thing. And what I think the program does is it allows someone who just doesn't know how to get started in their faith and go deeper in their faith. And they know, they feel there's a calling there somewhere. They just don't know how to do it. And for me, Bible study, hardcore Bible study, was not the way to draw me in. I mean, it's just the way my brain works. Now I'm much better at it. Mm-hmm. But, and this is a very light program where you just need to show up. We just come and have a cup of coffee, watch a movie, and let's talk a little bit about your faith. And it's safe. And from there, it's you plant the seed and let the Holy Spirit take over.
I'm so glad you mentioned that it's light and it's not too heavy, and that you can enter as a beginner. You can enter at whatever point you are in your faith. That's one of the questions we kind of just blew past. It was like,
Sure.
who is this ministry for?
Yeah.
But one of the answers to that question is this is for any man.
That's right.
No matter where you are in your faith, you could be a scholar, a theologian, or you could, be like what you were saying, Bob. It's like not even really comfortable, or not even feeling super called to sit down and study the Bible itself. But this, I love how you mentioned that this is for anybody at any sort of level or stage in their faith life. Just so long as you have that calling, just kind of say yes to it.
It might not even be a calling. It might just be a little sound that's going on.
Yeah.
That I want to do something. And it's amazing to watch the Holy Spirit every week. It's different, and it goes a different direction. Mm-hmm. And it's sometimes that more somebody that really hasn't explored their faith that much, that just takes over. They ask I can't remember who it was in our group, but they just asked this very naive and innocent question, and I remember it just stumped us, everybody.
I get that.
Anyway,
I'll go to a kindergarten class and one kid will ask a question and I'm just floored. I'm like, I don't even know where to begin with that.
Yeah, that's such a loaded question.
They're just smarter than I am,
The thing I would add to what you're saying, Bob, is that even though it's not like a Bible study per se, they bring in Scripture constantly.
Oh, yeah.
and so that
absolutely.
That would cause you to say, okay, I'm not familiar with that passage. I'm going to go home and look that up, and you dig deeper into the Scripture that way.
Truth be told, I have this. I have my phone in my hand. We're not doing a YouTube live stream, but I have this in my hand in the Bible, ready to go. A lot of times when I'm watching a video, and I'll just look up a verse, and I wasn't doing that 5 years ago when I entered the program.
Gotcha.
It feels like that's gotta be. I mean, at the end of the day, this is what Jesus does with us, right? When I always love the story of Zacchaeus, right? He doesn't ask for a dissertation from Zacchaeus. He doesn't start with some massive deep dive into Scripture or deeper theological problems. The first question he asks him is, "Come down from the tree. I'm having dinner with you." And then it's through the conversation, it's through that. And then when other people start to object that Jesus is eating with tax collectors and sinners, that's when, after having encountered all of this, then he says, well, everything that I have, if I've cheated anybody, I'd repay them 4 times over. And There's a process there. And I think for a guy, especially if you're intimidated or turned off, you're like, I mean, if you look at something and you're like, I know what a Bible study is. I don't want to do a Bible study, or I don't, well, this isn't that. This is gathering, answering a few questions just to kind of start some topic. But I'm guessing that each of the topics is generally different. Who knows where the discussion goes each day?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So there's nothing you can't come in prepared for it. Like there's nothing you can come in going, okay, I'm ready. I have all the answers. There's no way. And nobody does. Right. which is perfect. It's a perfectly even playing field. And like you said, whether you're a theologian or a schmuck like me, then it doesn't matter. There's a place for you. Yeah. What would be your encouragement? To a guy who's thinking about, maybe on the fence about it, or somebody who's not necessarily from our parish, that you would say, like, what do they need to do to get started, to either get connected to Timmy or to bring Timmy to their parish?
So I would say, first of all, just come pick a Saturday morning, come join us, experience it firsthand, see if that's your thing. If it's your thing, keep coming back, and if it's not, that's fine too. I don't know. What do you think, Bob?
No, I think it's really that simple. I think the big objective for us is to not expand too fast where we diminish the quality, but yet we do need to add numbers. So for us next year, I think we've got to really think about how we're going to balance those two things out. But we probably could be doing a lot more of outreach too, and hopefully this is going to help a little bit.
Yeah, that's the goal. There's your message. It's a simple thing, but it challenges and changes your life, right? Is there anything better than being able to look at somebody and saying, "Hey, I have a very easy way that will, if you give it a chance, will change everything for you."
Mm-hmm. Right. Speaking of outreach, you might laugh at this, Bob. I've had a reminder on my phone, on my Google Calendar, for probably the last 8 months.
LinkedIn?
No, that's separate.
Oh, that's a different one.
That's a different one. No, but it's to send you an outline for That Man Is You testimony to post on Facebook. And I've had this literally on the back burner for almost a year. So yes, we can do more outreach. I formally apologize for not doing my part, but it will happen. But
we can take that copy and put it in our new LinkedIn page.
That's right.
Which Mary set up.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah.
Mary, one of the things you asked earlier as part of one of the questions that we really didn't touch on is the pitfalls that men wrestle with. So I'd say one of them, and the irony here is, so one of them is just the day-to-day activities, the just life in general is what causes or prevents men from really doing this type of thing. And that's why for a lot of these guys, the early morning on Saturday is beautiful, because they can come at 7 o'clock, do the program, out by 8 o'clock, home, get the kids to soccer games, soccer practice, get to whatever events are going on for the day, and they're starting their day off, in what better fashion than spending time with the men and time with the Lord. So
no, that's incredible, and it's very rarely superseded by something else. Right. I mean, you almost have to be out of town in order not to be able to make that. That's right. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. So, or choosing to sleep. So, all right. Yeah. Well, with that, we want to ask you guys one question, because I know we've talked a little bit about, we've talked about a little bit about the beautiful flexibility of That Man Is You, and also the regularity. The program is definitely something that once you get into the rhythm, then you're like, okay, I know what I'm getting into when I show up. I got video, coffee, discussion questions. I got a familiar group of people. We are creatures of habit. We are absolutely creatures of habit. And so our last question, because I think it says a lot about the person and kind of your mindset, is that where is your pew in the church? When you come to church, where's your pew?
We go first.
It depends.
On
so it depends. If my kids are with us, then it's left-hand side, a little bit further back. If it's just Patty and I, it's much further forward in the center. and closer to the front.
What's the reasoning behind the switch? The kids don't want to be closer?
Exactly. They're more comfortable further away. Patty and I like to be closer to the front because we just feel like we feel like we're more engaged, more involved,
Kind of right in the center of it.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So that's
nice.
I love that. All right. Bob, where's your place?
Our place that we go is 2 rows back from the piano on the left side. So not the far, but the left middle.
Sure.
If you will.
Okay. And what's the reason? What makes that the perfect place?
Well, I like to see Mary. I like to learn from Mary live streaming. No, just joking. I like to see
for the listeners to visualize where Bob Sands is talking about. He's literally talking about the area that has a clear view of our live streamer and when our live streamer is kind of working. So.
Which we need to give some recognition to our live streamers, by the way, as well as musicians. Just want to side note that.
We haven't done a shout out in a little while.
We haven't. Maybe we should shout out.
I think we should probably shout out the person who live streams funerals and helps me out so much. Our wonderful Bob Sands. I'm like dying. That's great.
That's funny.
That comment was not prompting that, by the way. I appreciate that. I did nonetheless. No, but it's a place where I can see some action. I like action. It's close. And the other thing is I had surgery on my knee, and getting that right pew, it's a practical thing. It's perfect. I can't kneel on my right leg. So
it's like an aisle seat on the plane, right?
Exactly.
Oh, that's fantastic. We love it. And gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for carving out time in your busy schedule. I know you guys have a lot of things going on. Regular professional lives. So we are grateful that you were able to take some time with us. Friends, how can they get in contact with That Man Is You? How, besides, obviously, step one, as mentioned, every Saturday at the church, 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning.
So I would say the thing is go to the Nativity website, the ministry page. We have a page there, That Man Is You. It'll take you to a link straight to the National That Man Is You website, so you can learn more about the program, learn more about the content, and it'll also put you in touch with either Bob and I, and we can get you registered and get you hooked up.
But I also think and I would suggest this, is that I connect them with one of the existing TIMI members so they can kind of share what the program is about. That would also be a good thing to do. So if they reach out to us, we'll be sure to connect them with somebody.
That's great.
That's
I like
amazing.
that. I love that personal connection. As soon as you reach out, you immediately get connected with somebody. That's excellent.
Yeah.
So especially to the men in the parish that are feeling a little disconnected, feeling like there might not be anything for you, wondering if there's anything out there that kind of help sort of jumpstart your faith and kind of give you that moving forward. You heard it here first. We've got some guys that are ready and willing to be able to meet with you and to help you get connected to deepen your faith, especially through this group, through That Man Is You.
Yeah, and if you don't go to Nativity, if you're listening from outside of Burke, outside of the parish, then this is something that you can start up at your own parish. If you don't have if you don't have a That Man Is You or any sort of formal men's ministry or men's group, but if that's something that the Lord has put on your heart, or if you could clearly see the need at your own parish, if you reach out to us, then Tim or Bob could probably help you start your own chapter.
Yeah, and I think what would be really neat there, if you're interested, so July the 15th, we're working with St. Timothy's and the diocese to host the first diocesan That Man Is You conference. It'll be at St. Timothy's, and the idea is to bring in the parishes in the diocese who don't have the program, show them what it's all about, and kind of introduce them to that. So that's another opportunity.
Nice.
Amazing.
Great.
Sounds like a lot of great stuff going on. All right, Mary, speaking of great stuff going on, do you have any shout-outs?
I already shouted out my
Shouting
wonderful live stream
Well, thank you, Mary.
assistant. There's so many funny stories I could probably share, but we're way over time. Yes, I really do appreciate you, Bob. You do help out so much, especially when it comes to funerals, which is kind of a product of COVID. It's kind of a fruit, a weird fruit that's come out of COVID, is that we can live stream a funeral upon request so that family members from outside the state and outside the country can tune in to watch the Mass loss for their loved one. So Bob is very, very helpful in that.
And, you know, it's an honor for me because I get to work with my wife, Kat, on those funerals too.
Yeah.
She is wonderful, and you can catch her on one of our previous podcasts.
Yes, that's right.
She was season 1, I think, right?
Oh gosh, don't ask. I can't remember.
I don't have them all memorized.
I can't remember.
But,
what about you, Father? Do you have any shout outs?
Today, not really any shout outs. I think we're okay. I mean, I want to shout everybody out. I want to thank everybody. But right now, nothing immediately at the present. I'm just grateful for you. I'm grateful for these guys for carving out some time. And you know, I mean, grateful for all of our wonderful listeners for being able to keep us supported and moving forward with this fantastic ministry. So we're grateful for you guys. And with that, friends, that wraps up our episode. We are so grateful for you. Remember that if you want to share the love, if you want to let people know about us, you can certainly like and subscribe and do all those things that we have available on all of our different podcast platforms, all those different kinds of shiny little buttons and things that you can push. But also, we tell people this all the time. The number one way that you can spread the word about our podcast is by word of mouth. Let other people know. Let other people know what it is that you've seen, heard, and experienced here. And know that we are praying for you, and we're grateful for you guys. So keep us in your prayers as well. All right. Thanks so much, and God bless. Guys, thanks for being on our show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yes.